Here is some information and tasting notes for the Glenlivet 10-year-old special edition that I have here, which is not just a normal release from Glenlivet. This is part of Maison Whisky's artist selection. So this is artist number 8. The really cool thing with this is it's got this beautiful artwork on one side and information about the whiskey on the other side, which is great because even when you finish whiskey, you've got a piece of art to stare at, which I really like the idea of that. But this is quite cool. Le Maison Whisky is a beautiful liquor store franchise that has branches around the world. Incredible selection. They do a lot of private bottling stuff. So this here is actually a whiskey that they first tasted when they were at the Glenlivet stand at the Paris Whisky Live Expo, and it was a special edition 2007. They were blown away by it, and when they were sampling stuff, they found out that they had found some of the same batch that had come from that same batch that was used for that whiskey originally. So they decided that it had to be part of their collection. This whiskey is great in a lot of terms because the ABV on this thing is 66.5%. So I don't know if I've tasted any other whiskeys in a bottle finished product that are as high as this. So quite huge whiskey inside the bottle, but it's really interesting because it's aged in first full sherry hogsheads exclusively. So only aged in a sherry cask, never spent time in American oak. So that's why when you have a look at this whiskey, obviously by the bottle you can't tell, but here you can tell the color is incredibly dark on it and quite rich. And it comes out at cask strength. So it's only spent 10 years inside of the cask, but I think it's really interesting to see how that's developed in such a short amount of time. So if you have a look at the color, like I said, really nice and dark and rich. You can tell that that's pretty much a sherry exclusive. If you have a go on the nose of this, it's really interesting because it's obviously big in alcohol to start with, but once you push past it, it's very floral and you've got lots of dried fruit. You've probably got some red fruits going on inside there too. And if you leave it for a little while just to sit before you you dive in and you have another nose after a few minutes, you'll suddenly start picking up like notes of licorice coming through and maybe even a little bit of fig. So really interesting to see how the aroma on that develops. Obviously with that high ABV, it has time to breathe. It's going to benefit from it. So once you get stuck into the flavor of that, I'd recommend going cautiously at first to have a little bit of a taste of it neat as it is. And see how it develops. You're obviously going to get quite a big alcohol kick. Then I would definitely recommend adding a splash or two of water to it just to bring down the ABV and make it a little bit more palatable. But you're going to be looking at gooseberries in the beginning, probably some black cherry starting to develop after that. Once again, that licorice starts coming back a little bit. You start getting prunes and raisins and a wonderful chocolatey note that comes through. So an absolute monster sherry bomb that just really goes wild with your senses from the nose all the way through to the palate, the mouthfeel, and everything in between. So really fascinating to see how they've managed to channel something that's fairly young into something that's so complex and interesting. So I really hope you enjoy this artist collection from Le Maison Whisky, their Glenlivet 10-year.